Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Join us as we seek the truth and travel the long road to justice.
Hey everybody, Fruit Loop here. My what you know for this episode is, did you know that you could swim through the veins of a blue whale? It is the largest living creature on the planet. Its veins are so big that an adult human can swim through them. Crazy, right? What the world? So we are continuing our trek back through some of our older episodes highlighting the Pike County Massacre. The trial's coming up in August. When we finish these episodes, you should be up to speed. If not, there may be a few updates. We will do an episode on possibly next week to make sure you're all caught up. So sit back and take a listen.
Just quick recap. The Rodens, a family of 8, and Hannah Gilley, were gunned down in one night by who we suspect are the Wagners, a family of 4, and it centered over custody. So the last episode, we got to the point to where I believe they were arrested. Or no. They moved to Alaska.
Yep.
They moved to Alaska in May of 2017. Now, the murders took place in April of 2016. So it's a little over a year since the murders, and they're not even really suspects at this point. So they're looking at them, but they're not quite there yet. So they moved to Alaska, take the 2 kids that one is George's son from a previous marriage, and then obviously Sophia, which is Jake and Hannah Roden's daughter. So we found out when they were in Alaska, Jake got married.
Yeah, I was shocked on that one.
I was really shocked.
Yep.
Apparently he met her at church, and when they moved back and got arrested, she wanted out of the marriage. So
don't blame her.
So what did she do?
I think, didn't she start a
GoFundMe?
Yes, GoFundMe on social media.
Yeah. And it just essentially said, like, not word for word, but, I married into the wrong family. He's been arrested for murder. I want a divorce. Yeah. And I think she did get some money, but apparently some lawyer saw what was going on and helped her get that divorce. So we didn't know that until recently.
Nope.
So they moved back to Alaska a year later. So in the spring of 2018, they were coming back to Ohio.
Yeah, and they got arrested coming back, right?
No, they were home for a while.
I'm just saying though, after they came back.
Right, after they moved back from Alaska, they got back, I think maybe May or something like that, and they weren't arrested till November.
Yeah.
So there was still a little bit of stuff. But I watched George Wagner's bond hearing, which was August 31st of last year. So this is a really recent hearing. And the reason that I focused on this one is because it was kind of the first time that we got a glimpse at some of the ballistic evidence and other things that they have on the Wagners. But in this hearing, there was a lot shared. So we're going to kind of go down, because now we all know that the Wagners were all arrested and charged with the murders of the Rodens. Can I just say, those indictment hearings were so long.
Well, if you look at their charges, it's like over $500 million.
Yeah.
It's like
everything but the kitchen sink charge.
Yeah.
So anyway, so George wanted this hearing for a reasonable bond because, according to his attorney, they really didn't have a whole lot on George tying him to the murders. And what did I tell you earlier, Fruit Loop?
Yeah, that there is a lack of evidence.
There really is.
That doesn't point, like, I mean, I listened to some of what you were listening to, and they were making points of, okay, who did you say purchased that? What card was that purchased? Like, and it was all pointing to Jake.
Yeah.
Like everything they said. So,
and we'll get specifically into that stuff down this list. So the state didn't call any witnesses at this hearing. They had special agent, I believe it's Scheider. He testified. He's been on this case, I think, pretty much since the beginning.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing I learned, if you remember, we talked about how law enforcement bugged George Wagner's phone for, I believe it was a month. they had listened to his calls, trying to see, I guess, if they could catch him in anything. And I thought it was 8,000 calls over the period of a month, but the special agent said it was 8,000 calls that were of interest to this case. So they had way more phone calls, but obviously more. So what evidence did they talk about during this hearing?
So evidence he lists ballistic, shoe impressions, forged documents, recorded. Oh, what does that say?
Recorded conversations.
Oh, sorry.
I shorthanded, my bad.
Yeah. Recorded conversations, text messages.
Yeah, so they had just, I almost feel like when I say that they didn't have a lot on George, a lot of times they will, in these kind of hearings, they will use the bare minimum that they need to justify not giving him bail while they're holding back the big guns.
Yep.
So,
and we see that in all these cases we're covering. It's the same thing in all of them.
Right. So, but I will say, I think by the end of this episode, you might see why I felt the way I did. Yeah. There just wasn't a lot tying him to the scene, but we're going to get into it now.
Yep. So there were 3 calibers of firearms, a 22 caliber long rifle, a 40 caliber gun, a 30 caliber gun. They uncovered information that George was fond of Glocks and was known as a Glock man. His uncle told authorities, that's what his uncle told authorities. He was in possession of a 30 caliber rifle that is a potential contributor at one of the murder scenes.
Yeah. So as far as the Glock goes, they found 40 caliber rounds that were fired from a Glock. And then Jake had a list of firearms on his phone, and he literally had it listed by person. And so that was, the Glock obviously was George's.
Okay, so you're saying like the guns, and it had Jake out beside it, or George, or Billy, like it had that listed?
Yeah, I mean, it was like the family. So he even had one listed for Sophia, which was, I don't have it right here. I think it was like a 22 something.
Okay.
So he just had, I guess, whatever guns each person in that family owned in a list with their name.
Oh, wow. Merry Christmas to you, Mr. Officer.
Right, yeah.
Mr. Detective.
Yeah. So they found some 22 caliber shell casings that matched the shell casings at the crime scene on the property that was owned by George and Jake. So they were able to say that shell casings that were found at the crime scenes match shell casings that were found on their property. And it came from the same firearm, essentially. They were able to tell that the casings were fired from the same gun.
Gotcha. And they own this property together, right?
Right. One point that he made in this hearing was, since birth, these boys have never lived alone. They've always lived together. Just how they never separated as a family.
Yeah.
Everything, like finances were mingled. They used each other's credit cards.
Look, I ain't gonna lie. When my brother moved out, I was like cutting cartwheels.
Yeah, my brother got married and moved out too.
Yeah, I was ready.
I remember trying to convince my parents to knock the wall down between our rooms to give me
make it a bigger room.
Yeah.
I did the same thing.
They didn't listen.
No.
Gosh.
Nope.
They ended up and stored all their Christmas stuff in there.
There you go. Yeah. So yeah, that's I don't know. So they didn't find the Glock gun at all?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Just the shell casings.
Gotcha.
So they were able to find some shoe prints and blood, and they were able to get those prints off the, from...
Shoe prints are telling.
They're very telling. That's how, one of the ways that they were able to identify the Night Stalker, not identify him, but he had a very specific pair of Avia shoes, and literally only one was shipped to Los Angeles.
Wow.
And it was his size. So they found these shoe impressions outside of every window or near every crime scene. And so shoes can get you in trouble.
Dude, just don't commit a crime.
Exactly.
You're going to get caught.
You know what's scary about the Night Stalker? And I didn't get to say this. He did not care who he hurt or killed. Anywhere from children, where he sexually assaulted children, up to man, woman. He got in for the most part in unlocked windows. So last night,
I'm double checking.
1 o'clock in the morning, I'm going and pushing up all my windows. Okay, back to the Wagner. Sorry.
Yeah, they were able to determine that the shoes were sold at Walmart. They were sizes 10.5 and 11s. George was asked in an interview his shoe size. They checked Walmart's within a 50-mile radius.
Yeah, and it's really crazy how they do that. So they asked all the Walmarts within a 50-mile radius to pull receipts or footage and all that stuff from anybody who had bought shoes in like 2016. And so they were able to kind of narrow it down that, okay, it was Angela that bought it because they have her on. Look, Walmart is like, they were saying on a show I was watching, don't ever like plan to commit a crime and go shopping at Walmart. They have some of the most sophisticated surveillance systems.
Dude, they have them on the aisles. Like, I wave to them all the time.
Do you? I didn't know they had them on the aisles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like there's like a screen. Like in some of the aisles, there's like a screen. I think it's in some of them where it's like high priced, more expensive stuff. But they have like a little monitor and a screen, and they watch you.
I just thought it was like a display that wasn't working.
Look, I knew a guy who worked for security in Walmart. Like he was, they call it I don't even know what they call it, but loss prevention something or another.
Oh yeah.
And dude, it's brutal. Like they get a little rough with you when you get rowdy in Walmart, from what he said.
Didn't you get that one security guard that's like a WWE enthusiast,
and
he
yeah.
like jumps off the little carrier and power drives?
Yeah, like mall cop or something. Yeah. So when asked about fingerprint evidence, the guy on the stand said they have a palm print evidence, but no fingerprint evidence.
No, there were no fingerprints found of the Wagners in any of the properties. And additionally, the defense attorney made clear that he was able to get the agent to admit that they found no DNA evidence of George's either.
So with the fingerprint deal, they found a photograph of Jake holding what they suspect to be the murder weapon, a 1911 pistol that used 22 bullets. How do you get a palm print and no fingerprints?
I don't know. It makes me kind of think that if they were wearing gloves at some point, maybe the glove slipped off his hand and got part of his palm.
That's a good point.
I don't know. But they were able to see the ridges on the photograph of Jake holding this Glock. And they were able to send that photograph to the crime lab, and they were able to make a comparison to the partial palm print found at the scene, and it came back to Jake.
Dude, that's some Abby Shuto NCIS detective work right there.
Exactly.
Golly.
Yeah, but these people are smart.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so they have that. But other than that, there's no DNA evidence as far as what he testified to at any of the crime scenes.
Dude, did they walk in bubble wrap?
I don't know, but
I mean, during a struggle or something, normally there's a hair fiber, there's something.
You would think. It makes you wonder if they were wearing, like, you don't know. I mean, I'm sure that the clothes they wore, they put on before they, after they left the house. I mean,
hazmat suit.
I will say this. These people are evil to the core, but if you want to look at it from a planning standpoint, they weren't arrested for 2 years, and they moved 4,000 miles away for a year of that time. They planned the thing well enough.
Methodical,
to get 2 years. I mean, it's not really often that you're waiting that long to charge somebody.
Yeah.
I really do think the cartel and the fact that the whole family was killed really threw off investigators. I really do.
I wonder if they were making tips, like to the anonymous line,
You don't know with these people. I'm telling you, it seems like they kind of mostly thought of everything. Unfortunately, the one thing that got them arrested was that suppressor they found in the well on Jake and George's property, and we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Mistakes were made, but I think if they hadn't have found that suppressor, I'm not sure that we would have arrest, at this point.
Yeah. So they talked about the forged custody document with George that he used to get custody of his son with his ex-wife. The computer that was used to search for and print the fake custody documents was seized at the Montana border.
Yeah. And so they were able, and I think we touched on this last episode, but they were able to determine that the custody papers were printed in April of 2016, but they were signed in 2014 and 2015 for each of the women, the mothers of the kids. And it was like a declaration of custody, which said that if something happened to Hannah or Tabitha, which is George's ex-wife, that Jake and George would get custody of their children. And then I believe there was an additional document that said that if something happened to George and Jake, that Angela would get the kids.
Yep, I remember talking about that.
So they had a handwriting expert look at the signatures, and they concluded that it was not Hannah's signature on it. And Rita, which is Angela's mother, if you remember, she was arrested for this, for forgery. She says that it's not her signature on that paper and that Angela had asked her to lie and say it was.
Yeah, and they did get handwriting specialists to confirm that as well.
Right.
Dude, how you going to throw your mom under the bus?
You know, I think if you kill a family of 8 or you plan,
Sheesh.
you just don't care. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's one of those things where the custody documents pales in comparison to the rest of the charges. So if I were Angela Wagner, I would not implicate my mom with everything hanging over my head.
No. And then call your mom on the phone and tell her not to testify.
Yeah, well,
sheesh.
Most criminals are dumb. And so Jake was avoiding investigators. He didn't want to meet with them. And
wonder why.
Yeah, go figure.
Yeah.
But they were at the residence at one point trying to make contact with Jake, and his brother George was there as well. So George sends a message to his dad Billy and tells him they've got company, don't come home. So the investigator said, obviously, that implicates that maybe there's a reason Billy wouldn't want to come home. And the investigator said, if I'm not guilty, if I haven't done anything wrong, why am I going to tell somebody not to come home?
Exactly.
But still, the defense attorney really just pointed out all this stuff, which is that it's not a crime. I mean, he tells his dad, we've got company, don't come home.
It's still what it's implying. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Like, don't get me wrong. These people are guilty as sin. Yeah. But you have to look at this from a defense attorney standpoint and what during trial this defense attorney is going to latch onto and run with.
Yeah.
He's got to get this guy out from a possible death penalty sentence.
So you're already kind of seeing where he's going with it, though.
Right, which is the evidence is super weak against George, and all this stuff is coincidental, and it doesn't prove he was in those trailers the night that everybody was murdered. And in addition, maybe he was smart enough and left his phone at home, but his phone was at his residence the night of the murders. But you can leave your phone at home. Come on, you're not going to tell me these guys didn't plan this big massacre and left George out of it.
They're a little smarter than Alex Cox. I'm just saying. Yeah.
That's not saying much.
I know, right?
So
the detective is asked about the recordings from George, and he mentions that George made incriminating statements in police interviews.
He didn't really elaborate too much. I feel like that's just going to be stuff that we learn at trial.
I think they're just going to dump the whole boatload of information, and we're going to be like, oh no, okay, never mind.
DeWine, who was the attorney general at the time, I think was he the attorney general, or he was like he made a comment that essentially he said it's going to blow our minds what comes out at trial. So I take somebody like that says this is going to blow your mind, and I trust him.
Yeah, he knows everything. So
right. So whatever they put out at this hearing for George is just the bare minimum. Do I think they've got more on him? Of course. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, give it a shout out to Montana Border Patrol.
Oh, they were on it.
They
called and let authorities know when the Wagners went into Canada, and then when they were returning and came through that Montana border station or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
They
Dude, those things are scary.
Oh, I know. I've been to the one in Tijuana to California. Ooh.
Yeah, I'm not joking. Like I hadn't done anything wrong, and they got the dogs out there, and they're sniffing and searching, and
oh yeah.
Yeah. I would not, if I was a criminal, I would not cross a border anywhere. Them people, they don't play.
Oh yeah. How about
No.
when I came back one time, I thought I had lost my driver's like my proof that I was a citizen at this little restaurant we went to, but luckily it had fallen out. You know how I used to put my ID in my back pocket and then I would always lose it?
Yep.
So it was one of those times, but it had actually fallen out in the car. But it was like 10 minutes of, oh my gosh, I'm going to end up in a jail in Tijuana.
No, but yours doesn't beat mine. Mine was, my phone told me I'd entered Mexico, and I don't have a passport.
Oh no.
Yeah, so my phone tells me I entered Mexico, so I'm thinking I'm in Mexico. And all I could think of was that Marine who got arrested that time and spent 8 months in a Mexican prison.
I cannot see you in any prison.
And I was by myself.
Oh, no.
Then I Border Patrol's everywhere. Well, I see this helicopter, and I'm like, this is really cool. So I take a picture of the helicopter, and I'm like, you moron. They just saw me take it. So then a cop stops me in the middle of the road, and I'm like, this is it. I'm going to jail. And it was just they were carrying a big, huge truck, the big dump trucks, like they're 580s, 550s, something like that. And it took up the whole roadside to move. So I was scared to death. I got out of there, dude.
I'd have come bailed you out.
Yeah, I was driving to the San Antonio is where I was driving. So yeah, Highway 9 or something. It's supposed to be on 10, but it routed me to 9. Yeah.
And almost
Sprint.
Mexico.
I got rid of Sprint later. Because they said I was in Mexico.
Sprint's going to put you in the Mexican pokey.
Oh, yeah. Nope. Okay, sorry. Guys, our ADD is bad tonight. We're jumping all over the place.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But so the investigator, so they questioned George at the Montana border. So the investigator said George stated there was no child custody issue, no dispute between the Wagners and the Rodens.
He said that was... that was very suspicious to him because obviously at that point they knew there was probably a custody issue.
Yeah.
And he just thought that was, he made it sound like that was an implication of his guilt, is how the investigator presented it to the court. But
dude, I'm going to tell you, the cops know what questions to ask.
Oh yeah.
Like if you have nothing to hide and you haven't done anything wrong, like you're fine. But the cops get you to, like when they know what questions to ask you, and then they get then you're like, oh wait, I've lied, so now I got to make this up. And I mean, they're smart. Come on.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So regarding the Walmart shoes that Angela bought, George and Jake both denied they'd ever seen the shoes, but Angela told special agents that she threw them away the same day because the boys didn't like them.
Yeah.
And the shoes were never found. So go figure.
They look more like, the camo boot wearing guys. I don't know why you would buy them Walmart shoes. Oh, You
good over there?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just saying. I can't see them wearing Velcro Walmart shoes.
I think it's kind of smart because you don't want your shoelaces to come untied when you're in the middle of multiple murders. And also, they were able to determine that the tread on those shoes, the shoe print that it left, that they were brand new. They knew they were super new. And then, of course, they find out she bought them, a week. But she bought those shoes the day Hannah Roden had her baby shower for her new baby.
Crazy.
Yep.
Crazy. So we talked about on the night of the murders, George's phone was at home. So no GPS or cell evidence against him. I mean, that's easy to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just feel like there's got to be just some aces up their sleeves. So essentially, the agent mentioned a couple of things that were said in the recordings that was incriminating, but the defense attorney said out of 8,000 questionable topics, essentially, you find one thing that he said out of all that, and the point he was making is it's not even relevant. It doesn't prove that he was part of the murders.
Yeah.
So that's why I got nervous, because when you sit there and you watch a defense attorney and he's like, so that was Jake, not George. That was Jake, not George. You can't prove anything. His phone was at home the night, and I'm sitting here thinking the dude's going to get off. Yeah. The murderer's going to walk free.
Yep.
And it won't go that way, I'm sure, but it makes you nervous.
Yeah.
Casey Anthony got off. O.J. Simpson got off.
Yeah, I think for me, he's been in there for what, going on 2.5 years?
Let's see.
They were arrested in 18, right?
Yeah, so it's like 2.5 because it was late 2018.
Yep. So something that they've seen has kept them in there.
And I think this went to a grand jury, so they hear and see evidence that we don't. So they were able to bring all the same charges against George that they brought against Jake and Angela and Billy. So
I would love to sit on a grand jury.
I would too.
Like, I want to hear all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so we know in May of 2017, the Wagners fled to Alaska. We talked about that.
Yep.
They had contact with the Wagners up until then.
Up until they left for Alaska, investigators had been in kind of loose contact. I think at that point they had been interviewed.
Yeah.
A couple of times. So,
and then we know they came back late spring of 2018 to Ohio. I was talking to somebody about this case, and they were like, morons, why'd they come back?
Yeah,
but I mean, I think they would have got them either way.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were watching them. They had them under surveillance.
Right. So we found out that the Wagners were trying to buy property in Missouri.
Wow.
And they were not successful. And so the special agent that was testifying said that the Wagners were attempting mortgage fraud in obtaining the loans. And when that failed, they moved back to Ohio. So they were just wanting to get away from Ohio, period.
Yeah. I mean, all this points to you did something wrong. Like,
oh, yeah.
I mean,
of course.
Yeah.
So the special agent sent a photo of the suspected murder weapon with a suppressor to George. And then George said to his family, which they heard on wiretap, this is a family emergency. So
he basically called a family meeting.
Well, yeah. Because he had also made one of the statements, the one statement I remember it now that he made that was kind of incriminating was he said, well, if they have the suppressor, they have the gun.
Yep.
Was one thing that they heard him say over the wiretap. So that kind of made the Wagners sort of go into a little flurry of activity. They were calling each other, wondering if the authorities had the weapon or not.
Ooh.
So I think that's pretty big to have that.
Why would you be worried if you didn't use a weapon?
Right.
Why would you be worried about the weapon?
Yep.
Can I just say, I was thinking about this the other day. Our whole system is just crazy.
It is so crazy.
So we, and I know where you have the, you're innocent until proven guilty. But it's crazy that we have people who commit crimes. We have 10 million things of evidence that says they commit a crime, but yet they get to possibly get away with it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy that we allow murderers and whoever else and their mamas, like, even, you killed somebody? Oh, it's okay, but you can get off on a technicality. Like,
well, I mean, look at Casey Anthony. The jury said that they just couldn't say without a doubt that she killed the kid, and they overcharged the case. So they said with what they were presented with, they couldn't find her guilty of.
Yeah, and that's why I'm okay with, like, Rob Wood taking his time.
Yeah,
because I don't want to mess up.
It doesn't matter. Death penalty, life in prison. I mean, it's just, don't muddy the waters. It's like with Casey Anthony, they overcharged the case and the jury couldn't convict her. I would much rather see people get life in prison because death penalty cases are just, you have to be super careful with them. That's literally, execution possibly.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm cool with life in prison and whatever.
Wow. Okay, so the special agent says overall they have approximately 100 days of recordings of George.
Oh, so it's more than a month. My bad.
Yeah, 100 days. Wow. The defense asked, over the 100 days, how many times did they catch George talking about the murders? And the agent says George didn't confess, but he made incriminating statements about their activities.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about the gun and the suppressor, I mean, come on.
Yeah. And one other thing that the special agent mentioned as far as why George, as if 8 people dead wasn't enough to warrant not having a bail set. He was overheard. They had an informant come to them who said they were at the Flying W Farms, which is Grandma Frederica Wagner. Ooh, I don't know why I got tongue tied on that one. Where the family was talking about wishing the special agent that was testifying harm, that he would smash his face in, he would make DeWine and Sheriff Reeder pay. And the agent said that just shows very violent tendencies with George. And, but there were no statements made like that they heard on recordings.
Wow.
And so let's see, where are we at?
When asked, in addition to the family emergency statement, George says that was self-incriminating.
Yeah, yeah, of course, it's a family emergency. Otherwise, a normal person would say, "Why did you just send me a picture of a gun?"
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't like our family emergencies are totally different.
Right. Yeah.
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 Yeah. No, we're out of mac and cheese.
Right.
Like,
Grammy's got a last minute haircut appointment.
Exactly.
That kind. I'm thankful for those kind of minor family emergencies.
Yeah.
It could be much worse.
Mine's not. Oh no, they know we killed 8 people. Yeah.
Yeah. So when the prosecution cross-examines the special agent, George was heard telling Jake he should have gotten rid of his phone because that's where they found the list of the guns.
Wow.
And George makes a comment to Jake that Jake is always getting them in trouble over a woman.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. Like, people just forget there's so many apps that track your whereabouts. There's so many things.
You're never not on camera unless you're out in the sticks.
Like media, I mean, not media, but technology is just so advanced now. Like, you can't do anything. Mm-mm. I mean, on Facebook, we've been looking at campers, right? And I'm saying we have drove to a camper place and looked. Could I tell you how many campers have come up on my Facebook just this week?
Oh, really?
Yeah, like they listen and they know everything. You test it out. Like, we'll talk about something like I don't know, sun-kissed oranges, and you watch tomorrow. You'll have a ad on Facebook for buying oranges or something.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yep. So.
Yeah. So the one thing that the Wagners did say was that they were suspicious they were being wiretapped and that they wanted to wait till they were home to discuss things. And they also were suspicious that the 18-wheeler that Jake and George drove on long-haul trips was bugged as well. So, and then we said there were no other fingerprints other than the victims at the crime scenes.
Yeah.
And when did he say that these preparations actually started? We had heard
February, but 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's just crazy.
Yeah.
It just shows you the mind of people.
I mean, honestly, you think about it. Did they think that they're going to kill a family of 8 and then they're just going to live happily ever after?
Yeah.
It's just not how it goes these days. I mean,
no.
Yeah, it's rare that you commit a murder and just get away with it for decades or ever.
Any kind of crime.
Yeah.
Like, there is always going to be something.
I mean, like I said, they could have turned in the Grow operation and gotten custody of her the right way. This was personal.
Yeah.
They didn't want these people to exist.
No. Nope. So the prosecution asked if there's any chance a lone Wagner would separate from the group and commit a crime alone, and he says no.
Yeah, and it just based on what we know about their family dynamics, it seems like they did everything in tandem.
Yeah. And I think there's been some other statements from other people saying that they live with the Wagners for a while and they make all their decisions together.
Yeah, it was a woman. I think maybe he was referring to George's ex-wife Tabitha, because she did live with them for a while.
Dude, that ain't healthy.
I'm sorry. Like, I'm not going to live with my parents with my husband.
Yeah, but you can't be an adult, make your own decisions.
No.
I'm telling you, that's more like a mob family than.
Yeah.
That's like Uncle Cleto. I don't know. What's a mob name?
I didn't know Cleto. It's like Tony Soprano.
There you go. I was getting an O in there.
Cletus.
That's the southern. That's like a southern mob
That's
name.
like that's like the Pickens County Mafia or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like the hillbilly mafia.
Yeah, hillbilly mafia.
Tony Soprano, like
Cletus.
Godfather.
Yeah.
Make an offer, can't refuse.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
I love The Godfather. So
yeah.
good.
So, Tabitha fled the marriage. So
she fled the marriage because her life was threatened by Angela.
Come on.
Yeah. She threatened to kill her. In fact, the night all this happened, Tabitha actually ran out of the house and hid on the property till dark. And then she ended up going to a gas station and never went back. So whatever happened as far as the threat, I think it was bad enough to where...
So you're saying when the mom threatened her?
When Angela threatened Tabitha, who is George's wife and the mother of his son, whatever happened, it was bad enough to where she fled the house and hid on the property until dark and then went to a gas station and never went back. And she did sign over custody of her son to George. So to me, for a mother to do that, it seems like you would have to be really, really threatened. Because it doesn't seem like there was a disconnect with Tabitha and her son.
That's horrible.
So, yeah. And like they said,
pure meanness.
They said on the day of the arrest, there was an obsession with custody. So it fits, with all the forged documents and all that.
I'm telling you, it comes back to Kindergarten Cop with that mom on there. She was obsessed with that little kid. Remember, she was like, she always thought he was sick. She'd by himself. He was sick. He didn't feel good. Da-da-da-da-da. Remember that?
I don't.
Oh, come on. You ain't seen that movie?
Like, not since 92.
Dude, I watched it in 93 probably.
All right. We're going to have a movie viewing so I can finally know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So Hannah told Jake and Angela both that the father of her baby was Charlie Gilly, the new baby. And in spite of that, Jake still wanted to have his name on the birth certificate. And he also told Hannah, don't tell Charlie this baby's his because I want you to move to Alaska with me.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
Yep.
I don't know. It's weird.
It is very weird.
Why are you going to take, if it wasn't his kid and it was somebody else's, then that dad should have a hand in helping raise the kid.
Yeah. Again, it just seems like an obsession with Jake and Hannah. Like Jake had an obsession with her and then the whole family had an obsession with custody of these kids.
Yeah.
Hannah never stood a chance, unfortunately. Bless her heart.
Yeah, crazy.
These people are crazy.
So the special agent said that Hannah made very clear to Jake leading up to the murders that they were not getting back together.
Yeah, because Hannah had made people very aware of what she said was abuse, physical and mental, at the hands of Jake, and that the Wagners were just incredibly controlling. So she probably knew this is the hot mess express.
Yeah.
Between Jake and the family and...
Well, didn't Tabitha's mom reach out to Hannah?
She did.
Yeah.
And that is one of the messages that they found on that laptop, that it belonged to Jake. He was the owner or the purchaser of it, but they had good reason to believe it was mainly Angela's. She was the one that used it. Now, I didn't know until watching this today. I had assumed that Jake hacked Hannah's Facebook Messenger. But during the hearing, he said it was actually the mother of Tabitha, who was George's ex-wife. It was messages between Hannah Roden and Tabitha's mother, where Tabitha's mom was telling her, do not let them do this to you. Fight for your kid. And that's when Hannah said, I'm not signing anything. They'll have to kill me first. And that was screenshotted on that computer that Angela used.
Wow.
And that was made in, I believe, like December 14th of 2000. That would have been 2015.
Well, why do you keep that? I understand I don't understand you hacking somebody else's stuff and getting it, but like reading it, but why do you keep that?
I think it goes back to that obsession. I think it goes back to stalking and this need to know everything. And I don't know. Maybe it's one of those deals where every time they read that screenshot, they got madder. and
Yeah.
it justified what they were planning to do. Who knows?
Yeah. And
But they had a
then-
lot of stuff saved.
Yeah. Then leave it so police can find it. And it
Yeah, right.
like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me that a lot of times digital evidence is what is getting people these days, because people watch Forensic Files and the First 48 and CSI shows. So it's kind of like people are getting a little wise to things they can do to minimize their impact at a crime scene, I guess, with DNA, although there's always stuff left. It just seems like the main stuff, and we're seeing that in Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. I think a lot of those that case especially is going to be 90% digital.
Yeah. Well, that's what Nate said about Tammy's death.
Right.
That they had so much digital evidence that they may not need to know the cause of death.
Mm-hmm. That's
Golly.
right. So, yeah.
Man. So Jake attempted to get Hannah to talk to an attorney about custody.
Yeah.
And Ohio is like our state. There's no real laws for the birth father. Hannah was not interested in seeing an attorney.
Which kind of makes me think that the custody stuff, the papers that were forged, because Ohio is a state where the biological dad, I guess, just out of the gate doesn't have any rights to the kid. I guess with the breakups, it seems to me like it was just their guarantee that these girls couldn't run off and not let them see their kids, even though obviously we know Hannah gave Jake Sophia the day before she was murdered.
Yeah.
So there was visitation there, but it goes back to that control.
Yeah.
I think it's just a huge control issue. The custody declaration documents, they were actually printed off of a Texas probate website, not Ohio.
Dude, that's...
So the suppressor.
Yep.
Why did they think that there was a suppressor used?
They concluded that a suppressor had been used in the murders due to the fact that at one location, 3 victims were shot and killed while thought to be asleep.
Mm-hmm.
So that would explain why nobody woke up and tried to fight.
Yeah, and so we know that at Chris Sr.'s house, I think the speculation is that at least he was awake, and there was a bit of a unexpected confrontation just based on the bullet holes, the one in his forearm, and just seemed like maybe a chaotic scene. They had shot through a door and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But at Dana Roden's and Frankie's place, at those 2 residences, there's multiple people sleeping. And like I said, we watched that YouTube video. It's very quiet.
Yeah.
If I'm in like deep REM dream and sleep, I don't think, that I would have woken up.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. Check back with us tomorrow for another episode in our rebroadcasting series on the Pike County Massacre. Look forward to seeing you soon.